Good morning. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit. We are going to start with a couple of hymns to really help us arrive. Let's sing with Pablo.
Okay. And we'll just do How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Good morning. I am Reverend AJ. I use he, him, and his pronouns here at First Unitarian. Our mission is that through spiritual connection in community, we listen deeply to ourselves and others, open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. We acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door and part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral and contemporary lands First Unitarian now stands. I welcome you this Sunday. If you are new or newish around here, I invite you to connect with our welcome table or through the links in the chat to get connected and get to know us better. If you're here because you're going through a hard time or you're worried about somebody else who is, please connect with our pastoral care chaplains. We have one online and one in the back of the sanctuary. You can connect with them during the service or after, whatever best suits your needs. I also want to invite everybody to stick around after the service, whether that's online or in one of our masked-only rooms or over cake and coffee and conversation as we celebrate the arrival of our new music director, Pablo. Yes, absolutely. There will also be tables with conversation prompts to help you get to know one another in a smaller group over a table. Or if you want something even more structured than that, we've got UU the Vote organizing and letter writing going on, and Reverend Sherry is also leading something on how to facilitate and lead something during connection time. So there's a lot going on this Sunday. There's a lot to celebrate and be excited about, and it is so good to be with all of you here this morning. With that, I want to invite us, as we settle into this sacred time and space, to take a deep breath together. And if you're online, I invite you to light a chalice wherever you are. And here in the sanctuary, Jason Wiley Bustos will light our chalice as we read our unison words. We'll make sure he has a chance to get up here first. Please join me in our unison words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
So, just wanted to make sure that this is on. Oh, I seem to not be on anymore. We'll make it work. Yay. Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm really grateful to be here. I was asked to share a story for opening words today, and as I was reflecting on the theme of today, I thought of a story of when little Pablo went to his first birthday party. And I remember being really excited. I was going to be visiting my cousins, and it was one of their birthday parties. And I arrived with my parents, and as things kind of happen in those parties, the kids go kind of do their thing, and the parents do their thing. And as I arrived, my cousin said, "Oh, so good to see you. So where's my present?" And I thought, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to bring a present." And little Pablo, and I recall this moment very vividly, then I started to cry. I didn't know what was expected of me or what was happening. My parents kind of noticed that something had happened, and they're like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "I didn't bring a present. I have nothing to give my cousin." They're like, "Oh, don't worry. We've got you. We're here. We brought a present. You're all good." And suddenly that kind of moment of fear and tears just cleared up so quickly for me. It wasn't until years later that I kind of processed and kind of realized that was probably the first time that I felt a little bit of shame or that I wasn't enough because I didn't have something to bring. I didn't know what to do in that situation. But the way my parents handled it and the way that they took care of that situation for me made me feel like I was uplifted and that I had someone supporting me. And I think that's why we come to church, to come to a place where we are together in family in community, we can uplift each other in those moments when we aren't feeling like our full selves or like we're not enough in those days. So I hope for that, for this community, and for all of us to kind of feel the warmth as we share and worship together today.
And so in community, we bring many gifts, but let's pretend for a moment that all we have is ourselves, our own present. And so online, I invite you to switch to gallery mode. And if you have your video on, just open your arms to the group. And here in person, I invite you to rise and greet a neighbor simply by presenting yourself.
Okay. Para vivir, yo busco un sitio oscuro para vivir, para vivir. Practiqué el mimetismo para vivir, para vivir. Me compuse 1000 caras. 1000 caras inocentes, 1000 caras complacientes para vivir. 1000 caras diferentes, mi amor, mi buen amor, mi amor que solo tiene la cara del amor. Yo cavaba la tierra, callaba, me escondía, borré todas mis huellas, me deshice de todo, mi amor. Para vivir, para vivir, yo busco un sitio puro para vivir, para vivir. Solo había este abismo, mi amor, para vivir, para vivir, para vivir, para vivir, para vivir, para vivir.
Oh, Pablo, don't sit down yet. We're going to keep making you work. If you could join me, and Allie, if you wouldn't mind joining me. Right here in the middle. So, as is obvious, we're pretty excited. Pablo, we're so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here with all of you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Pablo, we're so glad that you are part of this team, and we're only just now beginning together. And in the time and space ahead of us, our partnership will grow.
You will change us and be changed by us. This is what it means to be in community together.
And at the heart of this spiritual community is covenant. It's the practice of making promises to one another and tending to the connections between us, understanding that we live our faith in relationship. It's this repeated act that lays a foundation for who and how we are together. It helps us figure out what our greatest dreams might be together. And it helps us understand that we have a very human tendency to falter.
So we'll ask you to make some commitments to us, and in turn, this community will, hopefully, make some commitments to you. Please respond with "I will."
Pablo, do you covenant to journey with us, cultivating the gifts you discover among us, and helping to unfold those talents hidden within? Will you work with the ministers, the staff, and all of us to create beauty, engagement, and sweet harmony? Do you promise to bring out the music in us?
I will.
And to the congregation, all of us gathered here today, we have promises to ask of you also.
As lead minister of this congregation, Pablo, I covenant with you to support and nourish your success here. But more than whatever performance, excellence, or work that you do, I covenant with you to see you as a full human, one who has gifts here and who works as part of a team serving the mission of this church. For our greater gathering, for all gathered here online, do you promise to support Pablo's ministry among us, to bring your gifts, your openness, your constructive feedback offered in kindness and love? Do you promise that whatever music you know is within you, or that you intellectually know but don't yet believe lies within? Do you promise to crack open the door a little more to allow Pablo to move, to thrive, and to change this community, and to bring out the music in you? Please respond, "We will." We will. Pablo, thank you for being among us.
Thank you so much.
You may now take your seat. In community, we covenant to be our best, to be better, to be aspirational, to strive and to want more. And this is often one of our very best qualities. But truly, we are just now already enough. Even this is enough. And so in the spirit of prayer and meditation, I invite you to settle into this space, to allow yourself to connect with the earth below you and be held. I share with you the words of Vanessa Southern. So much undone, so much to do, so much to heal in us and the world, so much to acquire, a meal, a healthy body, a fit one, a lover, a job, a better job, proof we have and are enough, just around the corner now. Up against the reality of all that falls short and the limits of today. We honor the limits. If your body won't do what it used to, for now, let it be enough. If your mind won't stop racing or can't think of the word, let it be enough. If you are here utterly alone and in despair, be all that with us here. If today you cannot sing because your throat hurts or you don't have the heart for music, be silent. When the offering plate goes around, if you don't have the money to give or the heart, let it pass. The world won't stop spinning on her axis if you don't rise to all occasions today. Love won't cease to flow in your direction. Your heart won't stop beating. All will not be lost. You are part of the plan for this world's salvation. Of that, I have no doubt. The world needs its oceans of people striving to be good, to carry us onto the shores of hope and wash fear from the beach heads and cleanse all wounds so they can heal. But oceans are big, and I'm sure there are parts that don't feel up to the task of the whole some days. Rest if you must. And then, like the swimmer lying on her back who floats, or the hawk carried on cushions of air, rest in these chairs made to hold weary lives in space carved out for this doing of nothing much but being. Perhaps then you will feel in your bones, in your weary heart, the aching, healing sense that this is enough. Even this, that we are enough. You are enough. Enough. For these and all the meditations of our hearts, unspoken in this hour, I say amen. Here, each week, we gather in ritual to lay what is on our hearts and place it on the altar of this community. All that you bring is enough, and sometimes it is too much to bear alone. Whatever grief or growth or gratitude dwells in your heart, I invite you to type it into the chat online or here in the sanctuary, to light a candle in our center altars. If you'd like an usher to bring a candle to you, please raise your hand. Whatever it is that you have to bring today, it is enough. May we now share in witnessing to one another's hearts and lives. for all that has been shared and all that unspoken and unnamed here in community and in the world. We say amen. Amen and blessed be.
This morning's reading is the poem God Says Yes to Me by the Oklahoma poet Kaylin Hott. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do just exactly what you want to do. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes.
We are the ocean of hope, And everything that this church does for ourselves and the greater world is made possible by what we bring to it. And so each and every week we practice shared generosity to support both the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism, and half of our Sunday offering each week goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. Today we share our plate with the UU Schools Partnership. It's a ministry of this congregation that partners with 2 schools in the Rochester City School District to provide reading help, special projects, a summer program here. Our schools partnership engages volunteers from this congregation and beyond. It makes a difference in the lives of children, and through our generosity and in the spirit of abundance, our offering will now be received with gratitude.
Thank you so much for that beautiful music this morning. I have a story that I'd like to share with you all from a member of a Soul Matters group that I'm facilitating. It's a story from this week. And when this Soul Matters, a participant, shared it with me, I asked if I could use it in today's sermon because it fit our theme of enough and the topic for this Sunday so well. So, one morning this week, this member was sitting at home with her husband, scrolling through the internet, and came across a meme or an article or something of that sort that said something along the lines of, what if you stopped saying, I don't have enough time for that, and started saying, I am just not prioritizing that. Now, the original intended idea of this post was to say, oh, there's enough time, you're just not prioritizing enough. But she had read it in a much more liberatory way. Don't have enough time for that right now? That's okay. That's just not something I'm prioritizing right now. And while this is great for freeing one of, say, the category of chores that would be nice to get done but aren't actually necessary or don't need to be that high priority, she also began to think of it in terms of self-improvement and growth, right? We're always trying to get better, to be better people. This, for many of us, this is a huge part of why we come to church. But she thought, having this interpretation of this article that she saw, well, what if I just don't prioritize self-improvement or spiritual growth right now? What if I stagnate? Well, that would be enough. I am already enough. That would be okay. And at this point in the story, I'm already thinking, yes, that will preach. The world will not stop turning. You are enough. But then, back in the story, the phone rings, and she picks it up. Hi, this is Reverend AJ. Are you still able to make it to that Soul Matters gathering that's happening right now, the first one for the season? So now she has a choice. Does she show up late, but still start with this new Soul Matters group? The opportunity to listen deeply to herself and others and to spiritually grow connections and community? Or does she say, that's okay, I can do the spiritual deepening with others in community another time. I didn't end up prioritizing this or remembering it, and that's okay. I am enough as I am. Either choice would have been enough. Now, she did show up, of course, that's how I heard this story. And that's not a contradiction, right? We can hold both I am enough and I can grow more. I can build deeper connections with my spiritual community. I can work to become a better person. Whatever we are and do, whatever we prioritize or don't prioritize or strive to prioritize but fail, we are enough. And this may seem like a really sort of at-home, feel-good, obvious thing to say, especially at church, especially in Unitarian Universalist spaces. And it may feel very familiar because it's an implication of our first principle as Unitarian Universalists, that the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But I want us to try and appreciate how truly radical an idea this really is, that human beings, all of us, as we are and as we come into this world, are inherently enough. Consider, in contrast, the messages of capitalism that break down our self-esteem so that we will buy the amazing new fix-it-all thing that will make our life better. Consider the forces of political polarization and extremism which say, those people over there aren't enough and they're a threat to us. Consider some of the dominant religious ideas that have said that human beings aren't enough, not on their own, not without God. Saying no to those forces, to those messages, saying yes instead to the idea that you are, that I am, that they are, that we all are inherently enough. That is radical. And it's both radical in the sense of how it gets at the root of things, how important a message it is. It's not necessarily radical in its newness, because it was radical enough back in the 1820s to split the Standing Order of Congregations in Massachusetts, leading to the birth of the Unitarian denomination, one of our two historical foundational institutions. Prior to that period, the dominant religious institution in New England was this network of Congregationalist churches, the oldest of which were founded by the Puritan colonizers from Europe. For 200 years, these churches functioned stably enough, not going through any significant schisms or anything like that. But all that changed with the advent of Unitarian thinking. So you would be forgiven for thinking that the primary concept that drove this wedge between the more progressive Unitarians and the more conservative Trinitarian congregations was that question of the Trinity or the unity of God. I mean, it's right there in the name, Unitarian controversy. But in fact, what the Unitarians cared more about than the unity of God, what scandalized the Congregationalists more than the abandonment of the Trinity, was the Unitarians' high opinion of human moral and intellectual capacity, the idea that human beings were enough. It was the Unitarians' insistence on being able to, and therefore needing to, use reason to interpret the scriptures, rejecting arguments that the Bible contained contradictions that just must be accepted as faith, as mysteries, rejecting the idea that a good and loving God would give human beings a brain and a sacred text, and then ask them to ignore the understanding of their brain in interpreting that text. Rejecting the idea that human beings couldn't learn or improve themselves, being so inherently fallen and sinful and depraved. In other words, it was the move away from the theology of John Calvin. So if you were raised in or are familiar with certain Protestant denominations that follow Calvinism, especially Presbyterian is one of these, but he pops up in many, you might have been taught a handy mnemonic device called TULIP. It's a 5-letter acronym for these 5 essential doctrines of Calvinism. Now, don't worry, I really enjoy railing against all but one of those doctrines, but I will spare you my full rant today and focus just on the first letter T in TULIP, which stands for the total depravity of the human soul. This doctrine derives from the concept of the original sin, and it basically says that humans are not enough, that they are so thoroughly marked by sin that they cannot even choose God on their own. They need God's intervention to make them even worthy of God's salvation. So this theology was a problem for Unitarians, and it was a problem for William Ellery Channing, who was the main articulator of Unitarian thought in the 1820s. The problem he had was that by putting God as the only possible cause of human goodness, meant that God had created these totally depraved, tortured creatures, and that for whoever wasn't given the grace to overcome sin, well, now the evil that they do is God's fault. God was allowing evil to happen. And also, when people hold this theology of total depravity, then they can easily think, well, I guess I'm just totally depraved. I don't feel God's grace. I'm an evil being. I guess I'm not enough. There's no reason or way for me to improve. Either that, or it makes fanatics constantly seeking a radical transformation of the heart rather than doing the hard work of self-critique, of self-improvement, of striving and trying to be a better person than you were the day before. So I think it's really important to claim this radical heritage. I say heritage again because it's not new. It goes back to the early Unitarian thought and even older theologies than that, but also radical because it remains a powerful countercultural force. Claiming the inherent enoughness of all human beings means that we can say no to the worst of capitalism. We don't need unfettered and exponential growth that destroys the environment and tends towards entropy. We can say no to the xenophobia that separates us from them. We can say no to the polarization that says there can be no common ground and that we are good and those people are just bad. We can instead say yes to our own inherent enoughness. We can say yes to one another. And I'm not saying these are necessarily easy things to do and to claim, but these are some of the liberatory messages derived from claiming our inherent enoughness. But I do think this does lead us to one particularly difficult question to wrestle with in this meditation on our enoughness. When we consider the human capacity to error, to make mistakes, to do harm, to do evil. Consider the worst mistake that you've ever made. Consider the worst thing that anyone has ever done. It is radical but no less true to say that you are enough, even though you did that. Humanity is enough, and humanity is more than the worst thing that it has ever done, and each human is more than the worst thing that they have ever done. It can be a hard thing to really believe and live out in your body, though no less true. As much as the first principle of Unitarian Universalism is the one that is most often pointed to, the one that I most often hear new Unitarian Universalists say yes in response to, yes, I believe that. I think it's also the one that we problematize the most because of this problem of evil, basically. Because I hear this not constantly, but regularly among Unitarian Universalists. People will say something along the line of that person, those people over there, they really challenge my ability to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That historical villain, that human being who did so much evil and harm, they have inherent worth and dignity? I'm not so sure. How can I respect their inherent enoughness? So if you ever find yourself thinking along these lines, fear not. To this, I offer two handy Unitarian Universalist life hacks, or theology hacks, if you will. So the first one, when we say that we affirm and promote respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we don't mean that every individual Unitarian Universalist must give deference to every person, or everything that they've done, or every idea that they have. We don't mean respect in the sense of honor and hold up in high esteem. Rather, we mean respect in the sense of acknowledgement, acknowledging that yes, there is a sacred participation in this great thing called being that is alive within each and every person, even the most heinous and evil. Yes, whatever counterexample you're thinking of in your head, even that person too. So this sense of the word respect doesn't mean the same thing as I respect the scientific opinion of the esteemed Dr. Science, or I respect the hard work my parents did to provide for me growing up. Rather, it's the respect of, I respect your right to privacy. I respect that you feel a certain way even though I don't understand it. It's that sense of acknowledgement. So in this sense, my response would be to say that when you're thinking of the truly evil person, it may cause you to struggle with how you feel about that person, but it shouldn't actually cause any trouble with the idea of their inherent worth and dignity. Because although there is a lot that a person can do to be unworthy of a great many things, to be undignified to the nth degree, we still affirm as a people of faith that there is an inherent, unearned, and indestructible worth and dignity to every human life, and we respect it. Or at least we try to. We, of course, are only human, and these 8 principles that we uphold for Unitarian Universalism, we strive towards these principles. They are sometimes more aspirational than fully lived out, and that is okay too. That is enough. So this is where our theology hack number 2 can come into play, with much love and indebtedness to our Universalist heritage. Basically, if you do find yourself having trouble with the first principle, and theology hack number 1 doesn't work, try translating this sentence into your own theological framework, because it is couched in certain theological terms that you do not have to use or accept, but try this translation. God loves everyone, Universalism, God saves everyone. And it's a good thing, too, that God loves that person, so I don't have to. Everyone is enough in a very cosmic and ultimate sense. So it's okay if I, right now, don't have enough patience or grace for this person right here. Basically, we can say, I don't have to be able to see someone else's inherent goodness to know that it's there. I suppose that means it takes faith. So that's another part, an important part of affirming our first principle. We don't say that everyone has inherent worth and dignity because it's been empirically proven to us that every person has it. That would be such an impossible task. No, this is one of those foundational statements about reality, about humanity, about all of us. It can't be scientifically or logically proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. There will always be counterexamples. So what is our reason as Unitarian Universalists for upholding this belief? Well, the beauty and sometimes the challenge of our living tradition is this, I think, that we don't all need to have the same reason that we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Some UUs will derive it from the idea that we are part of a larger interdependent web, that no one is created or emerging from the cosmos with any kind of better or lesser status than anyone else. Some will say it's because we are all born from the same ground of being. Some will say it's because we are all children of God, or that we all share Mother Earth as our home, or we all come from the same mystery. Others might simply ask, how could we not all have inherent worth and dignity? And for others still, it may just be a strong feeling, a sense, a conviction. What's important as Unitarian Universalists, however we arrive to this place, is that we share this affirmation, that we say yes to being inherently enough. We say yes, yes, yes. As in the poem, God says yes, yes, yes. Even that person? Yes. Even me? Yes. Even if you aren't growing, even if you are stagnated, even with all that you are struggling with, even with the worst thing you have ever done, you are inherently enough because everyone is. And if that theology isn't cause enough to sing, I don't know what is. So please rise in body, voice, and spirit for hymn 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Pablo will play it once through on the organ, and then we will come together and sing. Please remain standing for our chalice extinguishing, but right before that, I have a quick announcement. After the service, if you exit through those doors on that south side, you can go and pick up coffee and cake if you would like, or if you need to stay, if you would like to stay masked, there's conversation prompts in room 110 over there as well. But if coffee and cake is what you'll be getting, then you can get that and move along into Williams Gallery, where we'll have the celebration and welcome for Pablo. So please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May you go forth singing, shouting, and saying yes, life, to one another, and to your own self, for the simple truth that we, each and all, are inherently enough. Go in peace.